an exploration of the role of tradition in the modern world, the subject of this conference, and indeed to a critique of the false premises of modernity, a critique set out in one of the seminal texts of the traditionalists, René Guénon's The Reign of Quantity. Now, many find this teaching difficult, not least because it asks us to question our very mode of being, and perhaps because it asks us to question an ideology in the form of modernism that has become so set in our minds that any other way of being seems in some sense fanciful and unrealistic. However, the teachings of the traditionalists should not, in any sense, be taken to mean that they seek, as it were, to repeat the past, or indeed simply to draw a distinction between the present and the past.
Au-dessus des vieux volcans, glisse tes ailes sous le tapis du vent. Voyage, voyage, éternellement.
Yes, there is on. Yes, there is.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, another video on René Guénon.
Yes.
You guessed it.
You
Wow.
seem to really enjoy our last one, so we're back at it with this follow-up work. Now, a lot of you are going to click away. A lot of you are going to be like, oh, these guys telling us about that spiritualism again.
Not everybody can have good taste. Right?
Exactly. So we're looking here today at one of the preferred books of King Charles, and if that's not intriguing enough that you feel compelled to click away, I invite you to do so. Click away.
Completely.
Click
Not
away.
everybody can have good taste and refined inclinations, correct?
Not everyone can read the same books as King Charles.
Please, you need to understand that video is meant for the elites.
Yes.
Honestly. Not the financial elites, right?
Not
But
the
like
media elites.
the spiritual elites.
Let's say. People who are elite in the constitution of their souls.
Voila.
And to those of you who are still there, we extend to you our greetings, our humblest exaltations.
Leave a like before leaving, please.
Exactly.
Do us a favor.
Thank
Do
you for
yourself a
joining us
favor.
on this
Voila.
metaphysical exploration, on this second installment of René Guénon on our channel.
Yes.
We're back at it again with what most people would consider, well, most people, it's a very small circle, the Guénonian philosophers,
Yes.
the students of Guénon. But within that circle, this is his most highly regarded piece.
So we've already discussed about the crisis of modern times, la crise du monde moderne,
Mm-hmm.
and if you haven't watched it, I invite you to look at it.
One of our best videos.
Very interesting, extremely interesting, magnificent. So honestly, you should check it out. And now we're going to study his most profound and most discussed work. Even though his work is only discussed by a tiny elite of people.
Including King Charles.
King Charles and lots of religious leaders from all religions.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
Exactly.
Even in many Masonic circles in France, in Europe, and in the world, he's discussed. Why? Because René Guénon is a man who believes in a quite unique form of system. René Guénon used to believe that there is a certain primordial form for every single human being.
That transcends its physical nature. Before something is physical, it exists in some intangible, immaterial way. Very similar to Plato's idea of the forms. It's roughly the same.
So René Guénon used to think that the Greek philosophers were just the beginning of an end. Like Plato and Aristotle, they all thought something that was a remnant of a primordial tradition. That's how he calls it. So René Guénon is really discussed in what we can call nowadays the traditionalists. But it's not about it. It's not about being traditionalist and
it's not
conservative.
about, exactly, it's not about conservatism, it's not about restoring the past. It's not at all what it's about. It's a
Yes.
misunderstanding. The perennialist philosophy, we discussed the yugas, the crisis, the apocalypse in our last installment of Guénon, but it's quite the opposite. Perennialism, the Guénonian traditionalist philosophy, is not at all a philosophy of chaos. It's rather, I would say, a philosophy of stability.
Of
It's a,
cycles.
exactly, it's a philosophy of renewal, of a stable, of a crisis you can, not a crisis, excuse me, of a reliable cycle. You can rely on the repetition of these cosmic forces.
Exactement.
So it's a philosophy of stability. Hence why someone like a king would be interested in this book. Because constitutionally speaking, the king is the symbol of stability. As the political order shifts, as parliaments are dissolved and formed, the king remains constant.
He represents unity
Exactly,
in front of division.
exactly.
So that is why the king is apolitical, correct?
And therefore, by him taking an interest in this book, consolidates its apoliticism. This is not a political philosophy.
So what is that book all about? The Reign of Quantity and the Sign of Times. Well, that book, of course, first of all, René Guénon was a French scholar. He grew up in France. He studied in a Jesuit school. He grew up as a Catholic, as a Christian, and therefore afterwards he really initiated himself into the esoteric circles of Paris. He was born an aristocrat from a very known family. He was very well educated, and he decided to enter those esoteric circles in Paris at the time. And he wrote that book after the Second World War. So he was in the Freemasonry. He was in many esoteric groups. And he later became a Muslim Sufi. But now there's a certain cleavage between was René Guénon a Muslim. René Guénon, for himself, he was either a Mason, either a Muslim, or a Christian. He was just somebody who was researching the primordial tradition.
Exactly.
So for René Guénon, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, any
Masonry, paganism.
Masonry, all of them have certain parts of something that is primordial.
Yes.
So for René Guénon, like, human beings used to live all together in a certain way that promoted, I would say, harmony.
Solidarity, collectivism.
Yes. There was harmony, right? Like everything was at its place. Like a king was a good king, but the bad king wasn't worth a good peasant. Like a good peasant was better than a bad king. Yes.
More worth.
So it's all about how you fulfill your role. It's not about your role. Like there's no inequality between roles.
Yes.
It's just as a human being, can you fulfill your role
Exactly.
as it should be in the order of things?
You can even think of an orchestra, let's say. The size of the instrument is not significant.
Yes.
Right? One violin versus one tuba, you cannot really compare them. Right? But each instrument must be proficient in its role.
Voilà.
If the orchestra is to produce a good sound, a harmonious, rich texture, pleasant to the ears and enriching to the soul, each instrument must do their part with maximum proficiency, with maximum quality.
So what is it all about? René Guénon studied a lot of Western and Eastern esotericism. What do we mean by esotericism?
Esoteric, well, it's like knowledge which isn't readily available.
Exactly.
Like, you can't just search this up on Google. Let's say you're in your class and you're like, oh no, I have to write my Guénon paper. Let me get ChatGPT to do it. ChatGPT can't help you with Guénon.
Voilà.
Plain and simple. Like, it's not on the internet.
So in each religion, there's an exoteric part,
Yes.
a part that is apparent, and an esoteric part. So the
part which is understood by a small few.
Exactly. And the esoteric part is a part that you can only experience.
Yes, it has to be understood intimately. It's not something that can be just researched or whatever. It demands that you are in there, in the initiations, in the de-initiations, let's say. It has to be understood through an intimate experience and exchange through peers. As history in the past was transmitted orally from peer to peer on an intimate basis, esoteric knowledge is done the same way.
Exactly. For example, in his book, The Symbolism of the Cross, René Guénon discusses about the symbolism of the cross that was always known through time. And he discusses about the geometry, the mathematics behind the cross and its meaning. He says that the primordial tradition was able to keep itself going through symbols.
Yes.
So symbols are the way to decipher
Yes.
the traditionalist. And when we say traditionalist, again, we don't mean conservative. We don't mean people who want to stay stuck in the past. No, we mean people who want to know the principles that are true in any time.
Yes.
In any time, they are always true. It's like our episode on the Iliad, right? We take principles from those myths. So, the perennialist tradition basically discusses something quite interesting. There is a certain way of living that was established, and therefore, with human travel, it got lost. It's like, for example, nowadays, if you take in the US, you have lots of Protestants.
Yes, for
And
example.
one day, for example, if there's an apocalypse in Europe, the Protestants would be like, oh, we derived from Catholicism. Catholicism was in Europe. Like, it would be something that's so far off, so far away. Like, is it true that Protestantism derives from Catholicism? You see? Like, it's an evolution or devolution. Guénon calls it a devolution, for example.
He had a strong opinion on Protestantism.
For him, Protestantism wasn't even a religion. Why?
Yes.
Because it was just a negation.
Exactly. And in fact, to call Protestantism a religion is in fact a paradox, because let's look at the etymology of the word religion, which means to tie together.
Religai.
like a rope tying things together. Whereas Protestantism, in Catholicism, let's say, you have the priest.
Yes.
You have that unitary, centralized voice for the diffusion of the truth, the diffusion of the gospel.
Yes.
Let's say. Whereas in Protestantism, salvation becomes an individualistic endeavor, and therefore you are untied from that unitary center. And therefore, it's like you said, it's a negation, it's a paradox. The attempt of religion to tie together, that tie is broken by the individualistic endeavor.
Protestantism is a negation, right?
Yes, as we've
It
established.
says, it screams, mind your own business. It screams it, mind your own business. My relationship to God, my relationship to what is truthful
Is mine alone and you have nothing to do with it.
is my business, is my affairs. Why not? Who cares, you would ask me. Well, Guénon cares, right? And Guénon cares because Guénon believes that a religion is something that ties people, like the etymology
Yes.
of it.
Yes.
Now, Guénon discusses in his book, and by the way, we have seen in King Charles' dethronement,
Yes.
we have
there's
seen
Orthodox chants.
Nice, right?
There are Orthodox
we have
chants
seen
in there,
Orthodox chants,
which
right?
is unusual.
With his sword do justice, stop the growth of iniquity, protect the holy church of God and all people of goodwill, help and defend widows and orphans, restore the things that are gone to decay, maintain the things that are restored, punish and reform what is amiss, and confirm what is in good order, that doing these things you may be glorious in all virtue, and so faithfully serve our Lord Jesus Christ in this life, that you may reign forever with him in the life which is to come. Amen.
Because Guénon, by the
Yes.
way, Guénon, like the journalists, because you know journalists, they decided that, yeah, it was a homage to his father, who was like part of the royal family of Greece, right? But people who know René Guénon and who have read René Guénon,
And who understand that King Charles is well versed in René Guénon.
yes, exactly. René Guénon used to believe that the only esoteric part of the Christian religion
Is
as a
preserved.
whole is preserved in orthodoxy.
Yes.
You see? And King Charles is an avid reader.
Yes.
An avid reader. Well, we don't live with him, right? But we can tell you, he's an avid reader of the reign of quantity and the sign of times.
Yes.
And he understands perfectly that the esoteric part of Christianity, the part reserved to the elites, when we say the elites, it means the people who understand the signs.
The esoteric few. We're not talking about class, we're not talking about privileges or whatever, we're talking about an esoteric few.
It's like for the Iliad, for example,
Yes.
right? You can say the Iliad is just a story, right? That's the exoteric part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the esoteric part of the Iliad
Is the symbolism.
is the
myth.
symbolism.
Yeah.
For example, what's the exoteric part of the Odyssey when you see Odysseus
The exoteric
with
part?
the mermaids?
The exoteric
Yeah.
part.
The
Let's say
exoteric-
call it temptation.
No, like the exoteric part is, oh, Odysseus is walking and you have mermaids. Ha ha ha, we don't believe you. Mermaids don't exist.
Right.
Nice. That's very exoteric, right? But what's the esoteric part of it? Man will walk through life and have a lot of
Mermaids trying to strand his ship,
meaning.
meaning that he must tie
Temptations.
meaning he must tie himself to the mast and plug his ears with wax.
So that's esotericism. It's
Yes.
like the principles that you can decipher out of a story.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And in fact, let's talk about orthodoxy very quick. I have a quick point to make. Orthodoxy, or Orthodox Christianity, we might say that it's in that it's so far to the east of the West. It's so Western that it's Eastern. Would you say the same? Orthodox Christianity is so Western, is so. What am I trying to say here? You
I know exactly what you mean.
Like it's right on the tectonic plates of the civilizations.
Let us remember something quite
Yes.
interesting. René Guénon believes that there's a certain geometry in geography. There's a certain sacred geometry in geography. Like if you take a map, there are certain points.
Are you going to talk about like the sun?
No, not even.
we'll
There
go
are
to
certain
that.
points
Yes.
on the map
Yes.
that are considered sacred. Like if you take, for example, what is called nowadays the Holy Land, and has always been called like that. If you watch the geometry on the map, you can see that it's literally the center of the world, according to Guénon, and some lots of complicated mathematics chapter that you can try deciphering in his book. Very complicated, honestly, even for us. So imagine. So you need to understand the Orthodox faith. When Rome fell, right? You've had the Catholic Church
The fissure between the East and the Western
who
Empire.
got its legitimacy from the emperor in Constantinople. The emperor of Constantinople was the one who gave the Pope
Yes.
his scepter and his crown. Like Orthodoxy is the religion that gave its legitimacy historically to the Catholic Church. Now we're not opposing them. Don't get us wrong. We're not opposing them. We're not saying Orthodoxy is right and Catholicism is wrong. Completely false. That's a pure misconception of the Guénonian philosophy. The Guénonian philosophy believes that human beings want to preserve a certain primordial tradition.
Exactly. Regardless of what religion you are inscribed in. Hence why Guénon took knowledge from all these different spheres.
Exactly. For example, Guénon used to read everything. The Quran, the Bible,
The Torah,
the Talmud,
Masonic texts,
Masonic
everything.
texts. So René Guénon used to notice something quite interesting. In the Islamic faith, you have the Prophet Muhammad is described as al-insan al-kamil, meaning the full man, the man who has
The whole man, the complete man.
exactly, the perfect man. In the Christian religion, you have the resurrection. The resurrection is when Christ becomes a perfect man after being crucified. He comes back in his divine form. You have even in the Bible the resurrection of Lazarus.
Yes, Saint Lazarus.
And
yeah.
we know that it's public knowledge that in Masonic rituals you have certain forms of resurrection, like
There are symbolism of resurrection. Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, like you have a lot of we could say symbolism of resurrection, meaning that human beings are born once and they should be born twice. And what is being born twice is being born with a certain knowledge, with a certain esoteric knowledge, with a certain capability, and therefore with a certain consciousness. Even in Hinduism or in the religions of the Far East, you have the nirvana. To attain
Correct,
the nirvana.
Yes.
What is the nirvana? It's the whole being. So to all those religions...
And even the Greeks, even the pagan Greeks, they had what was called a catharsis.
a catharsis.
Which, the root word in there is thanos, meaning death, right? So catharsis is the death of your old self, and the way that they achieved the catharsis in their pagan faith would have been through, let's say, an artistic experience that resulted in a profound epiphany that produced a change in their character and their divine being. Catharsis.
You know, there's a famous song called Shiva, Shiva, Shiva. Shiva, Shiva, Shiva. You know that song?
I don't know that
You don't
song.
know that song?
No.
Django. It's called
No,
Shiva, Shiva, Shiva. No?
I don't know that one.
So, in the Far East religion, in Far Eastern religion, you have Shiva dancing. You have Shiva dancing across, like, in a circle, okay? In Hinduism, you have that legend of Shiva who is dancing.
Okay.
And even in the Greek religion,
The
you have-
paganism.
Dionysus. You
Okay.
have the
yes.
dance of Dionysus. And he's always pictured as dancing in a circle, just like Shiva. Just like Shiva. Or even the Sufi, the Muslim Sufis. Like the Muslim Sufis are very esoteric.
Yeah. So,
It's the esoteric aspect of Islam.
Oh, you know-
They have circles, and in the circle there's one mufti in the middle of it.
Yes.
What that represents
I have something to say too. Yeah.
is, we're here for that.
Yeah.
Is what that represents is that man being a whole man, regardless of history. You know Jesus, when he was on the seas with his disciples, and the seas got crazy.
Yes.
Everybody was panicking, and Jesus was very calm, because regardless, and that is the role of the king, to be calm
In the midst of the chaos.
in the midst of the chaos.
And this is even we can even use that interpretation to the recent portrait of King Charles. A lot of people were shocked by that portrait.
red one.
Exactly.
Yes.
A lot of people were really shocked by that portrait. Its symbolism, its whatever. But you can see, we don't have to go into the depths of geopolitics, but we live in rather chaotic times.
Exactly.
We might say, we live in rather chaotic times.
He's telling us, like, don't worry,
I
You
am
can
the
see
stability.
you can see lots of red, right?
Exactly. There's red everywhere.
There's
Of
red
course,
everywhere.
Blood, fire, fury, chaos.
And you can see him shining as a sun, honestly.
Exactly.
And you can
the
see
butterfly landing on his shoulder.
his
His peace, his serenity.
calm face, right?
Yes.
You can see that he is stability in the midst of chaos.
So
just as you
it's
said.
actually a very profound painting. It's not, and here's the thing, like, you can interpret this painting through the traditionalist lens, but it is not a traditional painting. You see what I mean?
Yes.
It doesn't follow the traditional convention of a royal portrait, but it nevertheless has the most, let's say, traditionalist wisdom in it.
very striking.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was a very powerful painting. As you were saying, Jesus is on the ship with his disciples. It's stormy, but he is the symbol of calm.
He's the symbol of calm, right?
Yes.
And what do we call the king in medieval Europe? The Christ king. Like he's supposed to emulate Christ.
Yes,
He's
yes.
supposed to emulate Christ. His subjects are supposed to emulate the disciples.
And even in Fustel de Coulanges, we noted that the king is not just the ruler of the people. This is what distinguishes a tyrant from a king. The king is also the one who preserves the faith and the rituals of his community.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So you can see all of those similarities, right?
Yes.
In the dancing Shiva, the Shiva who understood how to dance this regardless of the turnings of history,
Yes.
right? Because Shiva is always depicted in a circle. You have Dionysus.
Yes.
You know, it's like that saying, life is all about learning how to dance under the rain.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's Dionysus dancing in the heart of the circle
Yes.
and being like, oh, whatever is happening, it is what it is, right? It's happening, but I'm going to dance, right?
Yes. Or there's even another symbol that I wanted to get to. There's the symbol of the medical study is the staff of Hermes. So it's a staff that has a ballpoint on it,
Yes.
wings on it, and two snakes spiraling up.
Yeah,
So it again
Guénon
brings,
discusses that.
Yes, it again brings us to that idea of the circling, the double helix. Now, what
For
this
pharmacists.
yes.
even.
So we were talking about Masonic symbolism. One Masonic symbol is the ladder, and the ladder in Masonry symbolizes the spinal cord. The spinal cord meaning because what does a ladder do? It brings you from one level to another. The ladder allows you to elevate yourself and enlighten yourself. The ladder symbolizing the spinal cord means that the spinal cord is responsible for your transmission of your energies, let's say, your creative capacities, right? And so the double helix of the snakes going around, what is the snake? The snake often represents vice, right? So as the snake's tail begins here and spirals up your spine, the head of the snake brings you to the top where the wings are. And the wings being where your mind is, allows you to soar, right? So even that represents the circle, that helix formation, which even it even explains, it represents the transmission of energy from what is, I don't want to be too vulgar and graphic, but from what is physical to what is abstract, right? The transmission of
Between desire and reason.
exactly, from creative power, your creative power, right? Rising up and being transmitted over here to be expressed in other ways.
So
right?
yes, you know that that quote, right? Fueled by desire, triggered by
By passion?
passion,
You okay?
right? So it even discusses about Carl Jung's shadow, right? Like yes, like or even Freud. But Freud discusses that everything is sexual, right?
Yeah.
But it's not quite right, I would say. Don't get me wrong, like Sigmund is very talented and everything, but it's not quite right. Like what I would say is that human beings have two horses, a white horse
And dark horse.
and a dark horse. The dark horse is very savage, right? He wants to just attack.
Run.
Yes. But the white horse is reluctant.
It's
He's
prudent.
like,
He's
wait,
prudent.
calm down, my dear
Yes.
friend. We're gonna walk that carriage through its destination, but prudently.
And we're going to pick the most favorable road to do it.
And
yes.
both of them need one another.
Yes.
Because, you know, the white horse is a bit too timid. Okay? But the black horse is too savage. Like, he's too, I would say, bold. Excessively bold.
Volatile.
Exactly. So that is I would say, the dichotomy in a human being. You have always those passions, those
Yes.
intriguing passions.
And the double helix, even the snake spiraling up the staff of Hermes. One of the snakes is dark, one of the snakes is light. That's how it's
I would
always
say the
depicted.
mind is a filter for the passions. For example, you have a certain enriching passions. You have enriching passions that are coming from your lower parts, right?
Yes.
And then you have a filter. Okay, I have that inner passion.
Yes.
What should I do? It's a filter.
Yes.
It's a filter that gives you I would say, the instinct to live in a community, in a society. Correct? Anyways,
Because what did Sigmund Freud say? Civilization is the repression of instinct.
voila.
Right? Civilization is the
I
repression of
wouldn't
instinct.
say the repression. I would say just it's not necessarily a repression, right? Because
know what you
look,
mean,
nowadays, lots of people, for example, are afraid to talk with a beautiful girl on the subway.
For example.
Lots of young men, they're afraid. They're like, oh, I should feel ashamed of wanting her phone number or wanting to go on a date with her. No, completely false. All you have to do is be civilized. Like, for example, myself. Bonjour ma belle, car je m'appelle.
Totally.
Hello, magnificent muse. You inspire me to write some poetry. May I get your phone number to send you the poem, for example? That's a certain way, right? Don't do this at home, right? Do it on the streets. But, for example, like, passions should be not repressed, but
Expressed.
I would say expressed, but tamed.
Exactly.
Tamed and expressed.
Which is why the passion needs to go up here to your creative.
Well, it's a nice filter.
You must- yeah, you need
Like, you need water. Yes, you do need water.
Yes.
But you need to filter that water.
Exactly.
Yes.
You shouldn't drink from the toilet bowl. I shouldn't drink from whatever water is readily available.
No, so passions are a must. You need to express yourself.
Yes.
Right? What is expression? It's when you have passion and you want to let it go. So, you know, all of those people...
Oh, I love that. No, I've never thought of it like
is,
that.
no?
You have internal pressure.
Yeah.
That you outwardly expression.
Right.
You put the pressure outward
So you
through
see,
creation, through creativity.
all of those vices that exist, like
Yes.
pornography, drugs, and those are just a way of expressing yourself.
Because what does drugs, alcoholism, and pornography do? It impairs your cognitive power.
Exactly.
So it disables the creative part and reduces that energy down the spinal column, down the Masonic ladder, down the Hermes staff, to the vulgar parts.
For example, I just came here, right?
Yep.
I was walking, I saw a magnificent, dazzling lady, correct? What did I do? Did I simply repress my passions and got back home and just indulged myself in vices? Not the style of the house, not the ethos of the salon. I went to her, bonjour ma belle, car je m'appelle. Excuse me, magnificent and dazzling lady. You've just enlightened my day. I could literally take a 10 under you. You're my sun, I could be your flower, or vice versa. Of course, I got the number. Of course, I'm seeing her right after that video. And that's the way it is, right? It's all about filtering your passions to make them acceptable and apprehensible in a
Yes.
civilized society, don't you think?
Yes.
Yes.
The correct usage of the creative power.
Voilà.
And what this does, the transmission of I think what is called is even Kundalini, is a precise term.
Yes.
It's used in Masonry, it's used in Hinduism even. The transmission of the Kundalini between what is metaphysical and what is physical back and forth creates a toroidal sphere, an electromagnetic sphere around your body. This is not even pseudoscience, this is fact. Your body has an electromagnetic resonance. And we can even, like when we say that someone is magnetic, that someone has a magnetic personality, or that someone is attractive, it's not even a metaphor, that's literally what it is. It is the resonance, the harmony, again, harmony, of one person's electromagnetism with another's, right? And so the toroidal sphere, it's kind of shaped like a donut, right? So let's take this in. The transmission of the Kundalini through the spine creates a toroidal sphere, so a circular sphere of electromagnetism, with the human intersecting it at its center, which looks a lot like the Greek letter phi. And phi, of course, is the symbol for physiology, hence the medical profession.
Completely.
That's where it comes from.
That symbol is used by pharmacists all over the
Exactly.
world, right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
All over the world.
All over the world.
Yes.
Correct. So Guénon's point is that today's society is a reign of quantity,
Yes.
meaning on every single aspect. Nowadays, he discusses that quite intensely. They don't talk about a man other than how much is that man worth?
Exactly.
How much is that man worth? Meaning, how much quantity can he amass? That's how you measure a man. Napoleon used to say we do not measure a man,
From his head to his toes.
but from his head to the
the
heavens. Right? A man was grand through spiritual grandeur.
Exactly. It's not even just a metaphor. It's not just like he took a poetry class in college and got some ideas. No, he was talking about a man is more than what physically... A man is more than just the physical container of his flesh.
Of course.
A man is not measured by the... Let's say this. The measurement of a person is not their measurements. The way you measure a person is not with their measurements, right? A person is measured with the size of their soul, with the extent and the greatness of their soul, I would say, right?
Size matters. So meaning, for René Guénon, nowadays, society is the reign of quantity.
Right.
How did that happen? King Charles, in his speech that we've showed you in the beginning, describes society going in through a phase of being subhuman. Subhuman, that's the term the king uses, right? What does he mean by that?
Yeah, let's go into that terminology even. It doesn't mean that you are beneath humanity. Like, these
It
words are...
doesn't disqualify
Yeah,
you from
like,
humanity.
These words are kind of perverted nowadays, you know what I mean? But what is it, as we say, what is it which has distinguished the human from the rest of the creatures of the animal kingdom? It is his mental faculties. It is his faculties of creativity and perfectibility, right?
Yes.
So the more you repress, impair, and disable these faculties, the less you become human, meaning the more you resemble the other creatures. Because this is what sets you apart from every other animal. And by disabling this, you disable the part which makes you unique from the other humans. That is what is meant by subhuman. The transmission, or the degradation of what is sacred to becoming profane.
Yes.
From the degradation of what is metaphysical to the physical.
Let's discuss that. René Guénon talks a lot about everything becoming profane. For example, science.
Even science, even numbers.
Let's
even,
discuss Oppenheimer.
Yes.
Oppenheimer, we all know that he has a famous quote, "I have become death, the destroyer of all nations."
Which is very funny because he quotes it from the Bhagavad Gita.
Exactly.
Which is
What's
like,
the Bhagavad Gita?
it's an ancient Hindu text, isn't it?
It's a story, right?
Yes.
It's a story. It's kind of like the Iliad of the Hindus,
Mm-hmm.
right? It describes how man can accomplish himself and be one with himself. It's the same concepts of the Islamic al-insanul kamil, the complete man, or the concept of resurrection.
Or
in the
even we
Christian
can
faith.
say the Renaissance man that occurred in the era of humanism
Voilà.
is just a profanity of the perfect man.
I like that.
That's what we can even say it
I
is.
like that.
That just occurred to me, damn.
I
yeah,
like
like
that.
the Renaissance man, the Homo universalis, is just a profanity of the, how did you call it? How is it called in Arabic?
Al-insanul kamil.
Yes.
The complete
the
man.
complete man.
Like it's a concept. It's a concept that exists in Islam, in Christianity, in
exactly.
Hinduism, the nirvana,
Yes.
attaining the nirvana,
Yes.
the catharsis in the Greek religion. It's a concept.
Yes.
Okay?
So Oppenheimer read that book, the Bhagavad Gita.
Exactly. So Oppenheimer, let's get real. Everything scientific for Guénon has an essence in the divine. Everything.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly. How many scientists have
Nikola
said
Tesla used to say,
Yeah.
you want to find the answers to scientific questions?
you have to find God?
Open the Bible.
Yeah. How many scientists have said, as I begun my study of science, I lost faith in God. But as I deepened it, I became closer to God. So when you truly, there's that expression, oh, you know, if all the scientific texts, if all the religious texts were destroyed, they would never appear again. Whereas if all the scientific texts were destroyed, they would reappear again. I disagree with that.
I think it's the opposite.
No, I think it's completely the same way.
Voilà.
Because what you'd have is,
the scientific test, I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
the scientific test is a consequence
yes.
of the religious test.
No, it's just a profanity of it. What is science? Like, it's even what Sir Isaac Newton's Principia Mathematica, which is the book that founded calculus and founded the discipline of classical mechanics, it's called Philosophia Naturalis, natural philosophy. That's what it's called. It's a philosophy of natural things.
Exactly.
It's just a profanity of religion.
You know, René Guénon used to believe that everything has a holy essence.
Mm-hmm.
Everything scientific, anyways, was discovered by a religious man.
Yep.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can see in the University of Baghdad, it was all Islamic scholars who discovered most of the mathematics discoveries. What, algebra,
Al-Jabbar, yeah.
al-Jabr.
Yes.
It's, for example, René Guénon, I'll give you an example of esotericism. Just an example. For René Guénon, algebra, everything religious is mathematical. You can take any religious text, even in the Greek religion, right? In the Greek religion, if you take the Greek alphabet and you addition, for example, the gods used to eat ambrosia and drink wine. If you addition the positioning of each word in Greek, in the Greek alphabet, you take wine plus ambrosia, the addition of them gives you the gods.
Like the numerical value of each letter.
Exactly, in the Greek alphabet, the ancient Greek alphabet. So it gives you God. So God, in a mathematical sense, equals ambrosia and wine. You see what I mean? So you can decipher...
It's tempting to say it's coincidence. It's tempting to say that it's coincidental.
Okay, so hear me
Yeah,
out. René Guénon describes how the angel Gabriel, the angel Gabriel in Islam and in Christianity is the one who gives knowledge, is the one who appears to give a certain knowledge. And in Arabic, what is quite interesting, his name is Jibrail. Angel Gabriel, Jibrail. And what's the meaning of Jibrail? Al-Jabir. Al-Jabir. Meaning algebra. It gave its name to algebra. And René Guénon would describe that as being the religion is algebraic. Every religion could be translated into a mathematical formula. And with that, and through that mathematical formula, you can decipher the secret of the universe. Okay? That is...
The same as even... Yeah, continue.
That is quite, I would say, interesting to know. And if you delve deep into the mathematics of religion, the link between mathematics and religion, you will simply find that one is the other through another form.
The same is true for music. Music has numerical values too. Johann Sebastian Bach, for example. What is music again? Music is just wiggling. Fundamentally, music is just wiggling air. You make sounds, I hit my hand, it makes vibrations in the air. How is it possible that we took all those wiggling sounds and made music out of it? It is through sacred geometry. Johann Sebastian Bach, for example, there's an expression. Before Bach, there was silence. So this guy's like the founder of the tradition of Western music, pretty much. He was very inscribed in sacred geometry. He was very inscribed in like Pythagorean mathematics, right? And from it, you do have certain intervals that do occur in nature. For example, you take the bass note of a scale, you double its frequency, you get an octave. You do some more mathematics, you get the different intervals, right? Even music has sacred geometry behind it, right? There's that expression, Van Gogh said this, I think, that music is fluid architecture, and architecture is frozen music.
Frozen music, yeah.
Yes. The more profane the music, the more profane the architecture. The more divine the music, the more divine the architecture.
I completely agree. We can see
Hence
that.
why Bach is played in churches and cathedrals, and Cardi B is played in your nightclub.
Voila.
Hence. And then again, while I'm on the theme of music and quantity, it's like artists nowadays, when they seek to outdo each other, what does it mean when an artist outdoes another? It's not by the beauty of their work.
No, it's not the aesthetics of his work, of course not.
An artist doesn't strive to make a more beautiful piece than another artist. What they strive to do is beat them in the charts. A song is successful and a song is celebrated only by how many plays it has, only by how many sales it has. That's not how it used to be. Could you... Like, Beethoven was not trying to beat Johannes Brahms.
And trust me, Beethoven was not listened by anybody, right?
In fact, it was interesting. Beethoven wrote with a popular appeal. That's the thing about Beethoven. And he brings in and Guénon could even say that Beethoven represents the degeneracy of music. That's where it went wrong. Guénon might even say that Beethoven is where music went wrong, because Beethoven wrote very passionately and with a very popular appeal for music, right? But music nowadays is a commodity, for example. The excellence of music is not in its aesthetic beauty, but in its performance on the charts. And hence, this brings us back to the idea that everything is available for purchase in the reign of quantity.
Well, Guénon discusses how everything in the West became profane.
Yes.
Meaning, it had lost its connection with the divine when?
During the Renaissance.
Exactly. It started there. Like for him, for example, in the Middle Ages, there was a certain caste of people who understand the esotericism behind religion and understood that everything must come from religion. The laws, the music, the text. When I say come from religion, I don't mean like that religion should be the political power. I mean that everything in essence is divine. And what happened is that even in the mathematics, even Oswald Spengler describes that in the West, in his book that was given by Henry Kissinger to
Richard Nixon.
Nixon to read, like it was so important, Henry Kissinger gave it to Nixon and he told him, listen man, you need to sit down and read that book. I know you're the president and you have stuff to do, but please read that book. So Spengler described how you have a multitude of mathematics. You have the mathematics. You don't just have one type of mathematics. But in the West, the mathematics is profane, meaning it has lost its connection to the divine, meaning everything in the West became profane. When I say profane, I don't mean heretic. I don't mean heretic. I mean somebody who is not versed in the esotericism of religion.
That is, by profane we mean it's a degradation of a previous form. That's what we mean.
Exactly. And therefore, the West has lost with the Renaissance, with the rationalism, with Descartes, who decided to make
The
everything
mind-matter problem.
mechanical.
Yes.
Everything is mechanical. Everything can be solved through reason.
By pure, yeah.
Reason. Being
As if man is
reasonable.
motivated by reason.
Like, as if man have conquered the world through reason.
Because it was the logical thing to do.
Yeah,
It was logical.
Like, it's so logical to hop on a horse, grab a sword, and just go take
It's
everything
so
you
logical
can see.
to risk your life day in and
So
day out.
logical. Like, there's nothing, I would say, a divine impulse. No? Yeah. Voila. So, you see what we mean. Like, Descartes destroyed the mental apparatus of the West.
Yep.
The Renaissance was a complete disaster. Of course, you've had a bit of statues and pornographic sites that you could see, right? Beautiful stuff, beautiful work, honestly. Like, I love the Botticelli, Venus Botticelli, magnificent. But the thing is that the Renaissance made men believe that he can achieve anything through reason, through himself.
The reason
there
through
is-
science, yeah.
There is no higher imperative, no higher science, no higher degree of intelligence that is higher to man. And we need to understand that throughout history, man had always had that notion of the sacred, as King Charles described it, right? Man always had a notion that there is something bigger than him. And that is how he elevated himself. He elevated himself to the level of what is higher.
Yes.
But by not having anything higher than himself, well, he is degrading himself. Because, look, he is the final form of what he can attain. He has every tool to be successful. Well, therefore, there is no seas to conquer anymore. There is no new horizons to discover. So let's just get into degradation.
Yeah. Let's let logic reign. Let's let quantity reign.
For example, ladies and gentlemen, nowadays, as we've said, a man is described as not his qualities, but his quantities. For example, we've discussed about that in the La crise du monde moderne, the crisis of the modern world video, our previous René Guénon video. How many ties does Nikita have? Well, now he's not wearing a tie, which is strange. Are you okay?
Let's cut that.
So, Nikita has like 1,000 ties, okay? So what can I say? That man is worth 1,000 ties? Or should I just start discussing about Nikita's incredible charisma, his charm, his courage? So qualities are not measurable. They're not measurable, correct? Twice. Qualities are a feeling.
They need to be experienced. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Yes.
How can you, for example, quantify a sensation? You could not, correct? So that is why the modern...
That's the idea of the soul, even. And that Christian idea that each man is of equal worth. The liberal idea, each man is of equal worth. Yes, it's true. Each man's soul is equally valuable. What capitalism has done, capitalism being, what capitalism is, it's the reign, it's the logic of the reign of quantity applied to markets and human interactions. That's what capitalism is.
And it's all a Protestant idea?
Yes.
Right?
It's the application of the logic of the reign of quantity to markets. And what therefore means is that a man's worth is not the worth of his soul, which is immeasurable. Rather, what it is, it's the worth of his labor. It's the worth of his output. It's the worth of his production.
It's quantifiable.
Yes. And it means you can cast a lot of people into being worthless.
For example, back in the days,
And we could call those the losers of the system.
you wanted to choose people in your team. Who would you choose? You would choose the most courageous,
Yes.
the most loyal, the most trustworthy man. You wouldn't choose... Nowadays, who do you choose? You choose the richest. You choose the one who owns that much. You choose in terms of quantity and not qualities. Well, is it good, is it bad? For René Guénon, it's bad. For René Guénon and King Charles, okay? So those are kind of interesting people to take their opinions from, right? We're just the messengers, right? The heralds. So,
I don't think we finished our idea about Oppenheimer either.
I agree.
We didn't.
So,
We took a bit of a detour, but let's return quickly to Oppenheimer, who was the father, of course, of the atomic bomb. By the way, like the atomic bomb is part of the motivation for the writing of this piece, The Reign of Quantity and the Sign of the Times. René Guénon opens this book by saying, "Ha! I told you so." Because when he wrote The Crisis of the Modern World, there were a lot of people saying, "Look, René, you've lost it. What is this stuff? Grow up. You're not a teenager anymore. Like, you can't be publishing about the end of the world." But then, First World War happens, the Great Depression happens, the Holocaust happens, Second World War happens, the atomic bomb happens.
Plus, you have he means you have industrial wars.
Exactly.
Like back in the days, you had a caste of people who used to go to war. But now it's industrial.
War even had a quality of sportsmanship to it. War even had a quality of sportsmanship to it, right? But now war is industrial.
Look, when you compare the World War I soldier who's in the mud, who's in the trenches, who's most of the time doing nothing, right? And whose life can just go away like that.
Without him even realizing.
Without even him deciding to apply his qualities to the game, right? When you compare him to the Napoleonic cavalryman on his steed, proud, displaying a show of force and courage.
Or the Homeric warrior riding upon his chariot.
Voilà. So you can see that there's a difference in capabilities. Nowadays, it's just about the quantity. Like, the World War I soldier was just about the number of soldiers.
It was just the exhaustion of the entire nation.
Exactly.
Yes.
But I would say the Napoleonic War was, of course, the first levée en masse.
Yes.
Right? But you still had those qualities that were important to win a war.
Yes.
You don't need qualities now. You need quantities.
You need technology.
Exactly.
Yes. You need...
So...
Hence the profanity of war nowadays.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So this book was brought about by Oppenheimer's atomic bomb. Guénon saying, "See, I was proven correct. We literally now have the doomsday device. We literally now have the machines with which we can actually bring about the apocalypse. It's no more just some metaphysical fancy. Like, this is now." It's very funny. I saw online some people saying, "Oh, the Oppenheimer movie was really nice, but the ending was a little bit sad." But you don't realize we're living in that ending. We are living in that sad ending, with mutually assured destruction. We have the doomsday device nowadays. And so, bring us back to Oppenheimer, the father of this device. Oppenheimer said quite famously that he was not good at mathematics. He was not good at that profane discipline of numbers and arithmetics. So we cannot even say that...
He was more of a... You even see it in the movie. He was more of a theorist than a man of application.
Yes, it's there in the movie. Like, there's kind of that foil against him, Oppenheimer. And when you see him writing on the board, there's never any numbers. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
There's no numbers on the board. It's all symbols. Yes. It's all symbolism. He's doing something like... Oppenheimer is doing metaphysics. Honestly, that's what he's doing. Democritus, like, we can compare... The story of the atom evolved from Democritus to Oppenheimer. Democritus discovering the atom, or theorizing the existence of the atom, and then Oppenheimer destroying the atom.
There's even that book by a famous French writer called Michel Houellebecq, called Particules élémentaires, where he discusses the atomization of society. And if you think about it, what was, in the movie, Oppenheimer doing? Like, you can see in his mind, there's always that drop, and like something falls.
Yes, and there's a consequence, a rippling.
Yes, there's a rippling.
Oh, and it even appears in his political philosophy too. Oppenheimer was a communist, for example.
Voila. Like, he wasn't a communist. You can say that members of his family were communists.
He was a theoretical communist.
His wife at the time, his brother, and he was kind of a communist, right? And it's all about atomizing society. And what did he do? Oppenheimer just conceptualized and translated the political ideas of communism,
the logic and the metaphysics of communism,
into the realm of science.
Of science.
Right?
Yes.
So he just took the atom, and instead of taking the atom alone...
Exactly. He wondered, what does the atom do with other atoms? What if, the same way that communism is the collectivization of resources, the atomic theory, the theory of nuclear fission, is the theory of what does the atom do if we strike it with one particle? And then these particles explode and strike the other atoms. What results is the atomic bomb. What results is a nuclear reaction. So Oppenheimer's science, which is truly just a metaphysics, which is the application of the logic of communism and collectivization, the reverse, what is it? The opposite of profanity, sacred.
Yes.
Rather than treating science as something profane, he treated science as something sacred, as something metaphysical. He was not proficient in mathematics. He was proficient rather in symbolism and in sacred philosophy, hence his interest in the Bhagavad Gita, and applied that wisdom to the atom and wondered what might the atom do if we worked it with other atoms, roughly speaking. Of course, I'm not a nuclear physicist and I can't go into the details of Oppenheimer's thinking, but roughly speaking, that's what he's done. The story of the atom has evolved from Democritus. The theory of the atom begins with Democritus. He takes a copper wire and he says, okay, if I cut the copper wire enough times, eventually I'll get to a point where I can no longer cut it anymore. The copper wire will become so atomic, atomized, that I cannot cut it any further.
And Oppenheimer, all that he did was like, okay, what if I cut it one more time?
With using other atoms.
Voila.
Yes.
So what if I cut it using another one that's uncut?
Exactly. What if I unleash the potential of that atom through the use of other atoms?
Voila.
And each atom unleashes the potential of each other.
And you've had an explosion. Why did you have an explosion? Think about it. Think about it. You've had an explosion because you cannot divide it. So it goes against the rule of nature. You cannot divide it. Therefore, you have a cataclysm. So, in society, what Guénon says is that we're approaching the Kali Yuga. The Kali Yuga is that everybody...
Oh, dude, so the nuclear bomb is Kali Yuga on an atomic level.
Yes! No, it is!
Yes!
So the Kali Yuga is the division of individuals, meaning you do not have a family, you do not have a clan, you do not have a nation even. You're just all alone.
Exactly.
You're all alone.
You're an expression in an Excel spreadsheet.
Voila.
You're a commodity.
Stop insulting our viewers.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, finance bros.
Voila. René Guénon describes how in the Kali Yuga, in that phase of the primordial tradition which was preserved in Hinduism and in many types and forms of religion, you always have the different yugas, the ages, and it's cyclical. He says that the final stage of dissolution would be the dissolution, first of all, of family, of culture, of nation, and the individual would not be part of something higher and bigger than himself, of a group, but he will just be an individual.
Atomization.
And what happens when you have an atomization? What happens, for example, look at it. Wars between democracies are the worst wars ever. Like when a democracy goes to war, you have the atomic bomb.
What do you mean by democracy? You mean like industrial nations?
Yes, I mean...
Say industrial nations.
I mean industrial nations that are individualistic, right? It's like taking an atom, and just putting it against another atom. It's the same thing. It's the same thing if you think about it. Like if two democracies went to war, right, with each other, it's like scrubbing an atom against another one. You would have a nuclear reaction. You would have the end of the Kali Yuga. You would have the dissolution. You would have the cycle coming back again.
Yes.
Correct?
No, it's literally, like I said, the application of the logic of the levée en masse, exhausting the entire resources of the country. Like it would be a complete attrition, not even attrition, devastation of the country.
You know, once I've heard I was looking at an interview on Russia, and I've heard the Chechen leader who's deemed a dictator by the West.
I forget his name.
Ramzan Kadyrov.
Okay.
So he's deemed a dictator by the West, and is he not? None of my business. But he answered, do you think I can do whatever I want? Each individual here, if I want to put him in jail, I would have his whole tribe against me. Like we're talking about 1,000.
That's what the Westerners don't get. Yes.
Like I would get 1,000 people against me. Like if I want to play the dictator and just take that guy and put him in jail, his family, who you have 1,000 young men, will come and say, no, you can't take him in jail just like that and play games. You're not, voila. So that's what I mean by nowadays the citizen in the West is becoming faster and faster just an individual. Just an individual. You see, there is no clan, there is no family, there is no tribe. And it's the same application to the nuclear bomb. The nuclear bomb is, you just cut it down, you cut down what is material to its essence, to the atom, the individual. And when you put the atom against another atom, you have a nuclear reaction.
Exactly.
So when you take two individualistic societies and you make them go to war with each other, you cannot resist and say, no, I don't want to go to war. You're just alone. You got to follow the state, whatever the state says. And two democracies going to war against each other would mean...
a complete destruction of either country.
No, the world. we're
Well,
done.
voila.
But
If they have nuclear arms, yes.
Guénon discusses that. He says that it's not the end of the world, it's the end of a world.
Yes. It's the snake. It's a common symbol, the snake eating its own tail. Have you seen that?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Even Einstein, right, who was not such a good friend of Oppenheimer, we could say, said that World War IV would be fought with sticks.
Yes, I know what weapons World War III will be fought with, but no, he says, I do not know which weapon World War III will be fought with, but I know World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones.
Voila. Is
Yes.
he wrong? Is he right? I hope we'll never discover it.
I hope this theory never gets confirmed.
Voila.
You know? And so, but the individualization, the atomization of the society is enabled by consumerism, is enabled by Protestantism, which makes salvation an individualistic endeavor, which gives rise to free markets and capitalisms.
Adam Smith.
Exactly.
Protestant
John
work
Locke,
ethics.
whatever. Yes. Max Weber. Free markets enable this. Like I said, capitalism is the application of the logic of the reign of quantity to markets and to human behaviors. Because what is it which motivates the market? It is desires. The whole entire basis of neoliberalism is that exchange is motivated by desires.
So we could say society is becoming more and more savage.
It's not. Yes, society is becoming more and more savage, as you've said. It's just an organization of the savage.
We listen more to our passions without even taming them.
Rather than the enlightened gratifications of family, friendship, catharsis, experience, we have the sacred gratification. You have the profane gratification of desires, of consumerism.
What happens on Black Friday? It's quantity against quality. Nobody
Yes.
wants to buy. I would believe most people go and buy stuff they don't need just to say I was there. Right?
Just for the thrill of getting a discount.
What's a beautiful girl nowadays? It depends on the number of likes you get.
Literally.
That's how you qualify her.
Literally.
That's how you qualify her. What about virtue? What about loyalty?
Yep.
What about beauty? No, it's all about the number of likes she gets. Look, for example, honestly, I never talked to them, right? But one of them came and talked to me. Oh, you don't want me to give you my number? Look at how many followers I have. And I looked at her. I was like, please. I've read Guénon. The reign of quantity doesn't affect me. I'm with quality. Okay?
Girl, you've never studied perennialism.
Exactly. I was like, who are you?
No, but truly, it is not followers which make a good person.
Voila. For example, nowadays, all they care about is like, there's a girl who once told me, oh, what do you mean you don't want to get my number? All of them try to give me their numbers all the time. I don't have enough storage anymore, that's why.
We had to delete a lot of stuff on your phone. To
Exactly.
Make space, yeah?
So she wanted to give me her number. I was like, why? Do you know how much my body count is? It's super low. I didn't get it first. And then I was like, okay, she's still in the reign of quantity. So everything in today's society has become more savage and savage. It's all about passions. It's all about quantity. It's all about more. Nobody is satisfied.
And the West, which is this realm of consumerism, of passion, of desire, so on and so forth, of profanity, is the perfect place for the staging ground of the Kali Yuga. Why? Because the sun rises in the east and sets in the west.
What do we mean by that?
What do we mean in that? The sun is the origin point. It is the heliocentrism. Everything revolves around the sun. It's not the geocentrism of, as was thought to be the case in, it's not the geocentrism of everything revolves around the earth. It's the heliocentrism of everything revolves around a primordial origin.
You know what I would believe? What I would believe? I was reading, that's for our
Another
next
episode.
video. Our next video, Rousseau. He was discussing how culture and arts, next video, basically
Results in a decay of man's morality.
corrupts morality in the Homeric sense.
Yes.
Meaning, Guénon, as nature is, would argue that the sun rises from the east and goes down to the west. We could even say that's how the primordial tradition evolves, right?
Yes.
You have-
Knowledge originates in the east.
In the east, it comes, it travels, it clashes on the way.
It's the Indo-European making his way across the steppe.
Exactly, across the steppe. Then it clashes. It's Attila the Hun.
Yes.
You know, even Genghis Khan said, if God didn't punish you, why is he sending me?
Yeah, it's like, if you had not committed such sins, why has God sent me here to punish you?
So I'm here just to...
In the name of God.
I'm here just to put you back in touch with the divine.
Yes.
So
And it's not even he was consciously thinking, I'm doing it in the name of God. It was just the innate default way.
like, of course,
Yes.
of course, it's that way. Because
Yes.
the more you study thoughts, the more you become hesitant, the more you become afraid, the more you lack courage. Okay, so the more the King Hassan II of Morocco used to say, the more they get educated, the more they become afraid and stupid. Honestly, it's not the exact words. Honestly, I don't know if he used the word
no,
stupid.
this
but
idea,
kind of.
this idea has been around. Thucydides says the society which separates its scholars from its warriors will have its thinking done by cowards and its fighting done by fools. These cannot be separated. Again, it's another modern profane thing to separate wisdom and courage. It's another profane thing.
Exactly, because
That the enlightened person has to be some weak geek, that stereotype in the American universities.
those people who have no
You can
claws.
imagine this stereotype.
I laugh at them, those people with no claws, and
Yes.
think they are good. Just
Yes.
like Frederick.
Frederick who? Oh, Nietzsche.
Yeah, that guy.
Yes.
So, and honestly, if you think about it, knowledge, like the primordial knowledge, comes from the east. It travels to the west,
yes.
and it clashes.
Yes.
And it clashes,
Yes.
no?
Yes.
And then it clashes, it travels,
But
it
where
travels.
is the sun at the highest point in the sky? In the middle. And where is the middle? The fission, the tectonic plates, the fault line between east and west, which is the
Holy
cradle
Land.
of civilizations, the Holy Land.
The Holy
The
Land.
sun is at the highest point, neither in the east nor the west.
Yes.
As it rises in the east, it originates in the east.
Yes.
It sets in the west. It turns to dark in the west. Where is it at its highest point in the sky? Right in the center, the Holy Land. And consider all of the holy books. What is the setting of the Holy Land? What is the setting of all of the holy books? It's the arid desert. It's austerity.
It's one
There's
man
no-
sitting and you have the sun.
Exactly.
That's how you get monotheism, right?
Exactly.
You have one man sitting in the desert, and it's always in the desert. It's always
The
people.
Quran, the Bible, the Torah, it's all written in the desert.
Exactly. It's all like one man sitting in the desert. Jesus in the desert. The Prophet of Islam sitting in the desert. Moses on Mount Sinai. It's always men being alone
In conditions of austerity, of no materiality.
and remembering.
Exactly.
It's remembrance. It's all remembrance.
It's not discovery, it's just remembering that it was there.
It's remembering the primordial ID. Voila, that's it. And history is all about knowledge traveling and clashing with each other. And honestly, there's a certain point which is quite interesting with the horse because I've talked to you about that. The horse is sacred to many traditions because the horse is the one thing that made the Indo-Europeans technologically superior to any other, which is they had horses. For example, when the Europeans came to the Americas, they brought horses.
Yes.
That's why they had technical superiority, because when you have horses, you can travel faster, therefore you can manage faster, therefore you can have better warfare, because you have faster supply lines, and therefore the horse is a game changer.
The horse is the game changer for real.
So honestly, you could even argue,
Like we can point out there's been several technological evolutions. AI in our day, nuclear bombs, it's the steam engine, the printing press. The horse has to be up there.
and René Guénon talks about the importance of having the Bedouins.
Bedouins?
When he talks about Bedouins, he talks about nomads. Like for him, the nomads,
Yes.
like he talks about a certain solidification of the world. Like back in the days, you had people who could travel from any place to any place. Any place to any place. But if you wanted to own a land, you needed to pay taxes.
Right.
Correct? But you could travel from anywhere to anywhere.
Yes.
Correct? But nowadays, if you think about it, the world is more solidified than ever.
More interconnected, yes.
No, more not connected. Because look, back in the days, you could travel from one place to another.
Oh, true. I know what you mean now. Borders, institutions.
No, it didn't
laws.
exist. Like
Yes.
you just travel. But if you
Yes.
wanted to settle down, there's a guy who's going to come on a horse and tell you, hey, you're here? Tax.
You have to pay a tribute.
He would be like, yeah, well, why? And he would be like, if you want to own a land here, you pay me a tax. I will protect you in times of hardship. And if there's a big war, you will come with me so we can protect my kingdom, therefore your land. Right? Nowadays, like you need visas in many cases. You need, René Guénon talks about that being a certain solidification of history. History is a wheel. And the more it solidifies itself, the wheel will stop. When the wheel stops, you will have the celestial Jerusalem, The celestial Jerusalem is a vision of how a city should be. And that vision will only occur to men when they will have a big, I would say, cataclysm, unfortunately.
A Kali Yuga.
Voila. That is it. And honestly, there's so much to talk about René Guénon. We could go on until tomorrow. I won't lie to you. Like, we would love to talk with the king about René Guénon.
Certainly.
It'll be our pleasure. Like, that's an appeal to the king. Your Majesty, if you'd love to, without the crime of lèse-majesté, to be on our podcast, it would be more than a pleasure. It would be an honor, honestly. And therefore, we would say that that was René Guénon, The Reign of Quantity,
And the Sign of the Times.
by the Friday Salon, your humble servants, who are quality, not quantity. And therefore, I would give it a voila.
That deserves a big voila.
Voilà, voilà, voilà qui je suis. Mais voilà, même ici, mes années c'est fini. C'est mes voeux, c'est mon cri. Mais voilà, tant pis.